Hey everyone, welcome back to Empowered and Out. I am your host, Coach John, and today we've got a returning guest in the house. And I am so glad that she is back. This season, we're talking about visibility and authenticity, what it really takes to unmask, own your identity, and lead without leaving parts of yourself behind. And this year, we're doing things differently. We're elevating, we're expanding, we're prospering together. Through real conversations and coaching centered insights, my goal is to help you reconnect with your confidence, trust yourself more, and start making career choices that support not just your success, but your well-being too. If you caught her first episode, then you already know Aime Hutton brings heart, honesty, and the kind of real-world insight that sticks with you long after the conversation ends. She's a powerhouse advocate, leader, speaker, and all-around champion for inclusion based in Calgary. And this time, we're going even deeper. In her last visit, we talked more broadly about advocacy, inclusion, and the incredible work she's doing in the community. But today, we're centering something deeply personal and deeply powerful, coming out, especially coming out later in life, and what it means to navigate that journey in your relationships, in your identity, and at work. Aime's story is one of courage, self-acceptance, and choosing truth even when it's hard. And if you ever felt like you were figuring yourself out on your own timeline or trying to decide what authenticity looks like in real life, not just in theory, this conversation is for you. So take a breath, settle in, and let's welcome back Aime Hutton to Empowered and Out.
Hello, everyone. Hey, John. Thanks for having me back.
You are very welcome. Well, we have to give an update because the last time that we were speaking, you actually were unemployed. But
Right.
now you are working, let me start that over. You are working with Open Door Group as an
Yeah.
employer relationship specialist
Yeah.
with the Workabilities program, helping adults living with barriers find meaningful, lasting employment. That's just awesome. And I encourage anyone who has not seen Aime before to go back and listen and watch that episode. We had such a great time, and I have a feeling you're going to enjoy this one as well. So today we're going there. We're talking about identity, work, belonging, and what changes when you stop negotiating with your own truth. So before we jump in, let's start with an energy check-in. I'm doing this new this year, and I thought it was good to, throw it out to the guests that I'm having on, like yourself, but also I'm hoping that the listeners will have a check-in on their own. So on a scale from 1 to 10, Aime, what's your energy today and what's contributing to that number?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. My energy right now is probably at about an 8. And the reason why it's at an 8 is my work today with Open Door Group and the Workabilities program. I was out and about talking to employers, advocating on behalf of one of my participants to help the employer hopefully say yes to hiring them. And so that takes a lot of energy. And though I recalibrated myself because I walked home from work. So walking home, getting some fresh air was really good. And, you know, as we've mentioned, I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and we were all kind of happy today because it was like +1 degrees Celsius
Oh my goodness.
last because last week, for the high, it was, -15 degrees Celsius without the wind chill. Or, in the morning, it was -27 Celsius. So we all were happy for a +1 today.
Wow and wow. Oh my goodness gracious. And we're on the flip side. Today we had close to a record high of almost, I think it was like 68 degrees. Now that's 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So,
Yeah.
but for us, that's very warm. That's very,
Oh,
very warm for us right now. We're typically these, so for
mhm.
us to be that high is not good. We actually even had at one point, not too close to us, but close enough. There was a town actually that had a fire warning that they had to evacuate. So we're very dry right now. So at
Mhm.
least where I am. Up at the mountains is getting a lot of snow, but they still need more. So
Yes.
we need a lot more. But All right. So I think we touched on it before in the last our last conversation, but I'm going to bring it up and go. And I don't think, and I know that we didn't talk about it. I know I
Okay.
introduced it in your bio, but I know that we didn't talk about it because I did go back and look. I looked at the transcript, so I definitely know what we talked about and what we didn't. But and that's part of the reason why we're here because we talked about it very briefly about coming out, but going to
Yeah.
have a lot more detail today. But so your message that you love, self acceptance is my superpower.
Yes.
When people hear that, it sounds powerful, but it also sounds earned. Where did that come from for you?
Self acceptance is my superpower. That really takes me like back even to university and then my coming out journey really as an adult, like really accepting who I am and being okay with it, especially in my 40s when I came out to myself in 2018, publicly in 2019 for the first time, thinking I was bisexual, and then again in 2020. And I was like, nope, after some more work on myself, no, I'm a lesbian and that's who I am. And that's that. And because, part of my coming out journey, and maybe others, especially if they're like in their 40s, 50s, and beyond, I know I had internalized homophobia. I was literally afraid of myself. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And I felt even to the point where I felt like an alien inside my own body because for so long I had dated men. And then it's like, wait a second, no. And so it was a big mind game with myself in my, here in my 40s, just being okay with it. And it took a long, hard sit down with myself. I remember I was sitting by the river in Calgary. If people get to come and visit, and I encourage you to do so, Calgary is really special because it has two rivers actually running through the city. So,
Hmm.
yeah. And I am about a 20-minute walk away from one of the rivers. And I sat down on the river and looked up at the heavens and, put one hand on my heart, one hand on my belly. And it was like, okay, God, okay, goddess, who was I attracted to growing up? And all these women's and girls' names fell onto my paper. And I remember putting my paper down and crying. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I am. So with that realization, I had another conversation with myself and like, okay, like getting clear, getting comfortable. And thank goodness for my wife. She has been so patient and so accepting and so helpful. And she's like, it's okay. Amy, we'll get like little by little, we'll get there. And now we have a really great relationship, a good intimate relationship. So she was really helpful and really like caring and compassionate and respectful and helpful. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell my coming out story as an adult. And then there's the piece about coming out at work. Do you want to go there now or
We'll go there in a few.
okay? Sounds good.
It's well, it will be the next big question. What was the biggest kind of going into a little bit deeper on the self acceptance?
Yeah.
What was the biggest misconception do you feel that people have about confidence when it comes to identity?
Confidence and identity. That's a really good question. And it's a little bit tricky to answer because confidence for everybody looks different. And self confidence looks different for everybody as well. So is just getting centered in myself of who I am and how I identify who I'm attracted to. And then being okay with that. I remember when I told my parents, I told them in an email, and I said, I have to be okay with this, and I've accepted this. And me living my truth is more important than me living in fear. And speaking my truth is more important than me living in fear. So that's just that confidence, that self piece of being okay with that. And it took a lot of, as I said, a lot of evenings, just being emotional about it and, crying and journaling and, when the weather's nice, not, well, it's nice now. It's okay today, but like, going to the river and like having a conversation with like the river or God, spirit, Buddha, whoever the listeners believe in or not believe in, and being cool with it.
All right. Well, so let's get into coming out later in life. So, what was happening? You kind of mentioned a little bit, but what was happening internally before you said it out loud?
Yeah. So in 2018, I was having some interesting dreams, lots of color and some symbols and different things and I wrote it down and I went to a friend of mine at the time who was studying to be a shaman and a dream worker and
Mm.
a shadow worker. And I explained my dream to her and she's like, Amy, please don't take this the wrong way. Do you think though that you might be attracted to women and men at that point in 2018? I was like, no, not allowed to be. You can't. No, stop. Like hard no. Because growing up, like we were all taught in like, the 1980s and, whatnot that, boy meets girl, boy marries girl, have family.
Mhm.
And, we weren't overly religious, yet that was part of it too, a little bit of no, you go to church and you marry, Amy, you marry a boy kind of thing. So that took a bit of work as well of getting my head around that. I was like, oh, can I go into a church again? Like that whole, and it's still, I was actually talking to a couple coworkers at work today about that. Yeah, I'm not really comfortable going into a few different churches here in the city. There's a couple I think I could go into, yet not all. So that piece of coming out later and accepting it and just speaking my truth.
So you mentioned it, um, and we're gonna follow up with it. So you talked about fears.
Hmm.
What fears were the loudest? Was it
Oh,
relationships? Was it safety? Was it family? Was it career? What showed up?
yeah. I think mostly it was family
I feel
because
that kind of is with a lot of us.
yeah,
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
yeah, because I was in my 40s, my early 40s at that point in 2018. And it's like, wait, like, will my parents be okay with me being who I am? When I wrote the exact same letter to my sister, I did have to chose to put a line in that email to my sister about my nephews. If you don't, to my sister, I was like, if you don't want me to see my nephews anymore or talk to them anymore, I'm okay with that. I've accepted that. So my sister wrote back and she's like, my views have changed. You can go, you can still talk to your nephews, like it's all okay. And just go tell mom and dad already. Because when I was coming out, I actually told two of my cousins first through Facebook Messenger, and then my sister, and then my parents, because I was so afraid, like frozen in fear. I'm going to be sick to my stomach, afraid. Back in the early 90s, when the internet and email and everything was, kind of being born, we had a family email. And if you wanted to speak to somebody, you put that person's name in the subject line of the email. So then that person knows, okay, this is for me. Well, there was an email that was sent out to my sister or from my sister to a friend of hers in late 90s who had just come out as gay. And the question that the email though wasn't to me, it was about me. And my sister asked our mutual friend, do you think Amy's gay? We think she might be. We don't know. What do you think? And my friend, who is more my sister's friend age wise, he came back and he's like, I don't know. I can't tell. If she is, can you still love her? Was the question.
Mm.
And the answer I read back was no. And I don't know if that no was from my sister or from my family as a whole. So when all of this is bubbling up in 2018, I was literally frozen in fear because I was so afraid of what their response was going to be. And luckily both mom and dad and my sister and my family, like all of my family, they're all cool with it. So yeah.
I mean, I understand it because I went to my sister first, and then I went to my best friend, and then I went to like my parents because I wanted to make sure everything was good. And, or at least if I had calm there and everything was accepting there, I knew it was going to be better. Hopefully. Well, I would at least have the support before I dove in
Yeah,
with
totally.
my parents. And so it took a little bit,
Yeah.
honestly, because we were pretty engulfed in the church. And so we were going to church a lot. I would say probably every Sunday
Hmm.
growing up. Now, when I came out, that was not the case. But yeah, it was definitely stressful and fearful for
Hmm.
sure. So, what surprised you the most after you came out?
I still remember my sister's sentence in her email response to me. She's like, "Go put on your big girl pants already and go tell mom and dad." I was like, "Okay." And it was 10 p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, midnight in Ontario, near where my parents, like in Ontario where my parents live. And I hit send and I cried myself to sleep. And as I said, I was just so afraid. And then I woke up the next morning because of the time difference and the time change and all that jazz. The mom and dad had already opened the email and my mom responded. So I cried again. And I was really afraid to open it. But I'm like, no, I mean, you have to open this email, like read it kind of thing. So yeah. Also shocking was when I started to tell a few friends, they a couple of them are like, "Oh, are you gonna hit on me too?" And I
Oh
was like,
gosh.
"Do you hit on every man you see walking down the street?" Right? So
I mean, some might, but yeah. But overall, I mean, probably not.
yeah. So that was one of the shocking things, especially because at that point when I was still in my discovery phase, we'll say, I thought at that point I was attracted to both men and women. So I didn't like, kind of thing. So yeah.
What got your sister to change? It's very curious because, before she obviously said, no. She,
Yeah.
so something had to have changed or she got a different perspective or
That's a really good question, and I've never asked her. I just accepted it. I'm like, "Okay, we're good, we're good." Like, I didn't need to know.
I mean, that's fair because the good thing is you still got to see, family. You got to see her family,
Yeah,
so that didn't change. And so that was good.
yeah,
And I think that when it comes down to it, in my personal opinion, your family. Like there shouldn't really be someone's who they're attracted to or not shouldn't divide a family personally. I mean, that's just, yeah, that's just how I feel.
yeah. We all we know it does though, which is unfortunate
Yeah.
in 26.
Unfortunately, yeah, it does. So if someone who is listening is in that I'm ready, but I'm terrified space, what do you wish that they knew?
I wish they knew that they're going to be okay regardless of whatever the outcome is, and whatever they're going to hear or read is going to be okay. As you and I both did, I would suggest like even start with one or two people that you feel the safest with and
Hmm.
not as fearful with, and then come in further into the circle, so to speak. And then the last people you tell are those people in your life that you're most afraid to tell and most afraid of the outcome.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I know, as I said, yeah, my first people I reached out to family wise, was my sister. But for me personally, even before that, I had created kind of a group of people, that I was hanging out with, that I was friends with, that I knew that I could rely on. And that was kind of my safety net that in case everything went to crap, I was going to be able to have at least people that I could, fall back on and
Yeah.
be with. But in the end, it was fine.
Yeah.
But so thankfully,
Mhm.
but again, that's not how everybody has had an experience by any means. And it's unfortunate, but it is how it is. And this is unfortunately how it is everywhere around the world. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
even more so where there are places where it's really not accepted. It gets even more dangerous
Hmm.
and fearful to
Yeah.
say anything.
Like I know now, I don't know if there's new statistics on this, yet in 2024, there was still 12 countries in the African regions that to be found out that you're gay could be punishable by death.
Yikes. All right. So you came out personally. And then, of course, like we all have to do, well, guess what? You have a job. You're coming out at work. And it can feel like a whole different level. And I mean, it's a whole multi step process, especially if you're at a job and you get promoted and or you change companies and now you're having to possibly reintroduce yourself again.
Yep.
What was your experience coming out at work and what made it complicated or meaningful?
Yeah, so coming out at work was a whole other ballgame for me. In 2018, especially when I came out to myself privately and then publicly in 2019, I was at a company, it's still here in Calgary, it's a not-for-profit, and I was afraid because looking at emails, looking around the facility where I was working and whatnot, I didn't see any little hints that they were pride friendly or queer friendly.
Mm,
There was nothing in a person's signature. There was no mention of celebrating Pride, which, by the way, Calgary celebrates in September. Like, no, nothing. So it was like, who can I tell at work? Who's going to keep my secret safe? I don't want to tell the higher ups. I'll tell my peers, like the other frontline workers that I worked with, a few of them. I'm not going to tell managers and directors or supervisors, at least not yet. Like I didn't,
Hmm.
again, that gauge of who can I
Yeah.
tell and the safety people. Like I knew of a couple people at work who were openly a part of the community. So it's like, oh wait, I can talk to them. So that was cool. Yeah. Then from that wonderful place I used to work, I worked in other places, and I had one corporate company I worked for. And, when I came out, I was like bold and this is who I am, like day one kind of thing. I'm like, I don't care.
Nice.
This is who I am. Because the company said they were inclusive though. Okay.
Mm.
So
Okay. Well, then that made sense for you to say,
yeah.
to be open and honest. Yeah. Right
Yeah.
away.
So I was right away. I was actually leading a group of people at this other place I was at. And when my now wife, like we've been together, we've had our hand fasting ceremony in 2023. When we proposed to each other in 2021, when I was at this other location, this other employer, there was no like, yeah, there was like, oh, congratulations. But there was no like card. There was no like celebration, I was thinking there'd be more. It was like, "Oh, yeah, cool." I was like, "What?" Like, if I was gonna be marrying a man, would this have looked different? Probably yes.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And also at this other place of work, my manager made a joke about the LGBT community, about the lesbian community in front of me, in front of the people I was supervising. And I was like, yep, nope, not safe. Don't talk about
Wow.
this anymore. And, then I started looking for new work. And the past couple of places I've been, very open, very accepting. The place where I am currently, Open Door Group, with the Work Abilities program here in Calgary. One thing that drew me to even applying to work at Open Door Group was on their website, openly talk about diversity and have photos of team members at a pride event or, doing different things. And I was like, oh,
Nice.
I can be safe here. And, it's a really wonderful community where I work. And we don't have the term is ERG, which is an employee
Hmm.
resource group. We don't have one of those yet. What we do have at least is a Teams like chat group for anybody who identifies as being a part of the 2S LGBTQ plus community. We can all kind of gather there and converse and share and celebrate and, you know, support each other with it. And, this is the one of the first places I felt 100% safe. When I was at another organization before here, I was as well. That was 100% remote work. So it was a little bit different, yet it
Yeah.
was very supportive. And it was a great place that I was there for 2 years and really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, they actually, when Tara and I, my wife, that's her name, when we had our hand fasting ceremony, in a good way, they went behind my back and put together like a gift card for me and Tara to spend at a hotel. We were deciding we were going to do like a mini weekend honeymoon just to get away for a couple of days. They went behind my back and they collected some money to give to me and Tara. And I was like, okay, so there's, you know, 8 people on the team or something like that, maybe 10. I'm like, okay, maybe $100, right? Like, or even 50, like, something. No, they turned around and they gave me a gift card for a little bit over $200. It
Wow.
was like, "Oh my gosh, like, wow, like, thank you." So we ate really well over the over the weekend at the hotel. But yeah, so, like, just I was really supported, and then where I am now with Open Door Group, like, is a very, very open, accepting, welcoming, inclusive, diverse place of work. At the office I work at, specifically in Calgary, there's 2 people that live with a visible disability. And I've never had that. And I've been working in this sector, the non-for-profit disability sector, for 12 years. And this is the
Hmm.
first time that 2 of my coworkers live with a visible disability. Yeah. So Open Door Group and Workabilities program really like walks the walk and talks the talk.
That's awesome. So we're going to go into that. We're going to talk about workabilities. So you're helping adults living with barriers, finding lasting employment. What does meaningful and lasting actually look like in practice?
So meaningful employment, long-lasting employment is something that a participant wants to do and they know they want to do it long term. It's not a survival job. which is what we don't do. We help them with, their resume, their cover letter. We have, workshops on that confidence piece, on having interviews and what that looks like. And then we work with them on when they feel comfortable to disclose their disability to an employer, to what that looks like. Meaningful employment is something that a person wants to do, likes to do, wants to stay there forever.
I like that. And it seems I feel like finding somewhere that's meaningful and lasting doesn't always happen, number one.
Yeah.
And it also tends to, I feel like a lot of times the people that I have chatted with, especially a lot on LinkedIn, which of course that's how you and I met,
Yeah.
but it's talking to those potential clients and clients, that's where their struggle comes in, is that finding that true meaningful place to work. So because so many places, like we've already said, if you're not seeing, especially being a part of the queer community, if you're not seeing that safeness, that safety, that inclusivity, you're probably not going to move forward with trying to go there, even if it's the best job on the planet, because safety is definitely where we all want to be in a
Yeah, for
workplace.
sure. And, especially the participants we support, they all live with a disability of some sort, self identified. So for them, that meaningful piece is I want to give back to the community. I want to be a productive, amazing, giving back person to the city I live in by working.
I love that. So, in the workplace, what needs to be true for someone to thrive, not just survive through, yeah, with your like the work abilities, like when you're
Yeah.
helping?
How much time do we got?
As much as you want, Amy.
Hey. So work is still needed to be done. There are employers that I met with today that didn't know about us, which is fine because we are new to the city. Open Door Group has been around for about 50. It's turning 50 this year, which is kind of funny because I'm also turning 50. So I had to laugh at that. They've been located though in British Columbia, which is one province over for
Okay.
50 years. And Calgary, Alberta is their first expansion into Alberta. And we only opened our doors October 1st. So part of my role is that education of no, we're here, we're new. This is who we are and what we do. I have a story, and it actually was when I was at the place I worked for 2 years that was 100% remote. I did very, very similar work there that I'm doing today. And I was at a job fair. Part of my role with the employer relationship specialist is I get to go to job fairs and talk to vendors and share about Open Door Group and share about the Work Abilities program and our amazing participants that want to work and are ready, willing, and able to work. I spoke with one vendor one day that explaining who we are and what we do. And then she looks at me and smiled and she goes, "Oh, well, we have a ramp." I smiled and I was like, "That's a great start. Here's my card. Let's have more of a conversation," kind of thing. Because there's so many ways that employers can help current current employees, current job seekers, job applicants, candidates that are coming to interview. And then also, getting ready for the what if. I know we're recording right now that in between the Olympics and the Paralympics that are happening in Italy. And I heard a line last couple summers ago when the Summer Olympics and Summer Paralympics were on. And at the Paralympics, one of our Canadian broadcast corporation, the CBC, said something to the fact of there are a number of athletes competing at the Paralympics for the first time from Canada who 3 years ago didn't have their injury, their illness, or their disability. So how are employers getting ready for those uh-oh moments or big uh-oh moments where, for example, maybe one of your coworkers or your teammates, your employees, maybe they had an accident and they've broken their leg and they have to be in a cast for 4
Yeah.
weeks. Do you have accommodations for them? Accommodations aren't we'll make it better for you and we'll help like that. No, these are things that need to be in place to help everybody to thrive and succeed at a workplace. I saw a cartoon thinking of snow. I saw a cartoon of, I think it was a school or some sort of building, and there was a set of stairs and there was a ramp side by side leading up into the doors. And there's the person at the bottom of the stairs, a number of people, and they were waiting for the person who was shoveling. And the person shoveling was doing the stairs first. And the
Nice.
comic, the bubbles of the comic strip was like, well, if you were to shovel the ramp first, everybody can use the ramp. If you think about it, people
That
who
is
have mobility challenges, people who maybe have delivery, have like a dolly or, something, people who have strollers, people who, like me, I just prefer ramps than stairs. Like if there's a ramp, I'll use a ramp. Yeah. So it's an interesting way to look at it of what are you doing to prepare for the what ifs at your work, and also the people right now today who are job seekers, candidates, and current employees that have told you that they have a disability or they need an accommodation and or they needed accommodation. Here in Calgary in Canada, employers are not allowed to ask if a person has a disability. How you can get around that is, say you're a talent and acquisition HR, team member, you can say
mhm,
to people, for example, our building, our office is on the second floor and we don't have an elevator. Is that going to be a problem? Or will you be able to manage? And if they're right, then you can heal here, yes or no. And okay, then how are you going to accommodate that person, even just for that interview?
mhm.
If it's in person, how are you
Yeah.
going to do that? So accommodations are not a bonus. They're to help your employees do the best of their job to the best of their ability. I know I went off on a tangent, but that's like,
No, it was good. It was a good tangent, actually.
yeah,
A lot of good information. So, what do you think needs to be true in a workplace for someone to thrive and not just survive?
yeah. For an employee, A, to feel comfortable and confident enough that they can ask for an accommodation without the fear of being fired or the fear of being put on some sort of probation. For an employer, to be accepting and looking at strategies, looking at ways to support their employees. Having that wiggle room, like an accommodation can be something as simple of uh, maybe it's a single parent and they have to get their child to school or to daycare.
Mm.
Well, then can they have a bit of wiggle room to come in at, 9:30 and work, and work different.
Yeah.
To make it better for an employee, another way you can have a free, like it's doesn't cost anything. Maybe there's an employee that has said, I work better if I can have 4 15-minute breaks throughout my day as opposed to one hour lunch break.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Never think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just
Huh.
tiny, tiny little things that can be make it better for the employee to work there.
I like that.
Yeah, because a lot of employers, when you start talking about accommodation, they're like, "Oh, big, grandiose, big, like $10,000 thing that I need to do." Yeah, it might be, and we have
Yeah.
resources here in Canada that can help with some funding on that, and there's grants and stuff, and I'm sure there is in the United States and wherever the listeners are listening from. Yet a lot of the time, it's just really simple little things.
Nice. Well, so what do you say to employers who still think hiring inclusively is risky?
Talk about the production, talk about how, example, someone with autism, they're very good at structure and doing like the task well and keeping on target, keeping on task and not deviating. They can stay very focused and they can get things done. Just working with employers, there's a really great, you might have saw it actually, John, because I did share it on LinkedIn a little while ago. There's a video news clip from the CBC in Vancouver, British Columbia, that interviewed a woman who lives with cerebral palsy. So, and she does have a couple of motor function issues. And she works as a structural engineer out in the field and she's climbing ladders. She's doing, the things she needs to do her job. And her boss and supervisor and team just figured out, okay, how can we make this work for you? And, off she goes. So employers sometimes, especially because here in Calgary, a lot of it is oil and gas and engineering and
Mm,
energy sector, a lot of the work is just explaining to employers and expanding their mind and their thinking. I have a coworker of mine who, one of them, as I said, he lives with cerebral palsy, and he used to work in the HR department for an oil and gas company. And he's talked about how he hired people with disabilities to work out in the field, and they just worked with that individual and made the accommodations work. So yeah.
Well, I think that what's awesome about the story, like that post and that story, is about that woman being out and about. She's not letting her any disability define her. She's like, I can still do this work, I can
Yeah.
still do this job, and don't pretty much don't tell me that I can't. And I feel that those, a lot of times, those who have a disability or have something that might, some people think is going to hinder them from doing their job, are, to put it bluntly, kind of badasses. Like, they actually go the extra mile to make sure they can prove that they can do it,
Yeah.
and they will do it. And they are the ones who are doing the craziest of things, and are potentially, in some ways, are doing like a TEDx talk, or doing things where people can really see them because of the challenges that they overcame, to prove to themselves and to everyone else that, don't just tell me I can't do something because I have this disability. I think I had the opportunity back in January to listen and watch a speaker, well-known speaker, who is I want to say he's pretty much fully disabled, but he actually is he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for being actually able to travel 100% on his own as a disabled person. And he is because he's a quadriplegic,
Okay.
and he can. And now, he did joke that, obviously, I'm not really fully traveling by myself. My wife sometimes comes with me, and maybe my children or whatever. But he said, but I nothing stood in my way, because just to shout out, his name's Chad Hymas. He's an incredible speaker, tons of books that he's written, but he's one of those people that said, no, this isn't going to hold me back.
Yeah.
And his story is incredible, but he just, like, I'm going to do this.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
I think it's very powerful to see, especially those that you're working with and helping to giving the insight to these companies and say, by the way, you can have this person come in here. They're going to be fine.
Yeah.
As long as they have the ability to, if they have potential needing a ramp, or whatever it might be, that they can still do the job.
Yeah. Yeah. They can still do the job.
You're prohibiting them from being able to get in the door to be able to do the job,
Yeah.
but they can do the job.
Yeah, and that's one thing that, with my role, I actually get to work with the employer on some of those pieces of, okay, so
Nice.
I know that, we'll say, just quote it like Sally, Sally needs this and this of an accommodation. How can I help you, employer, to make that accommodation a reality and make it a win-win? Another thing we can help with is onboarding. So, for example, maybe a client has applied and we've talked and I've talked with the employer, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, yes, we're going to hire this person, yet they need to have a first aid course or CPR course, or, something like that. Great. Where I work, we have funding, and we're government funded by the province of Alberta. And, our funding allows us to, like, be able to pay for our participant, your new job hire, to take that first aid course. And we will pay for
Nice.
that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so this is something new since we had last spoken last year. You have stepped into a major leadership role as chair of the Gender and Sexual Diversity Advisory Board for
Yeah.
the Calgary Police Service.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you did this in January. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, what does real belonging look like in systems that haven't always been safe for everyone?
Yeah. Belonging looks that people that can feel that they are seen and heard at a place of work. Granted, with the Calgary Police Service, so thinking in that respect, that all the officers and sworn civilian city workers can feel that they can belong and be themselves and talk about their partners and, use the bathroom of their choosing and be okay with that.
I like that. So now that you're doing that, you're in this role, how do you stay grounded when you're pushing change in big institutions?
Yeah, myself and the other members of the board, it's just doing a bit of a check-in at our monthly meeting. It's like, hey, how's it going? How are you feeling? I'm not sure if your listeners are aware, here in Canada, I guess now 2 weeks ago, roughly, there was a school shooting at a small town in northern British Columbia, and the shooter just happened to be trans. And that's how I've been saying it,
Mm,
because the media and some of the people on Facebook are saying, "Oh, it's a trans person." I'm like, It's a person who just happens to be trans. So
Exactly.
it's checking in with each other every month, say, hey, how's it going? Or do we need to, take some time and talk about XYZ? And just having that community around and being comfortable.
So, what's one change that you'd love to see become normal and not special in the next few years? And by those listeners, I put not special in air quotes. Those, you obviously can't see that, but
Yeah. In regards to the Gender and Sexual Diversity Advisory Board,
yes.
well, we have some asks that we've been asking the Calgary Police to look into, to do some training, to do some things. And one of them is I would love to see is the police stations in the city being more frank in their inclusion statements and inclusion things. Maybe do have like a rainbow and a trans pride sticker on their door after they do some training to make sure that they're able to accept said rainbow flag and trans pride flag stickers on their door. Lots of different things. That's one that comes to mind though right away.
All right. So, I have to ask because I know we touched on, I believe, the last time we chatted.
Yeah.
Are you still mentoring the two SLGBTQ plus youth ages?
I am. That's kind of slowed down a bit, yet it is still an opportunity. I did give a presentation to the Calgary City Teachers Convention a couple of weeks ago. And that was really good because the right people were in the room, but the wrong people were in the room at the same time.
Um,
So the room that I was put to do my talk in was that what had been sponsored by a group of people that was the SOGI room, sexual orientation, gender identity room. And it was decked out like wall to wall in pride flags and all the other wonderful flags in our rainbow community. And there was even a candy buffet bar. And
nice.
I did my talk, and my talk was about pronouns in the workplace and why they're important for mental health. And the people in the room, the wonderful people in the room, were all queer or strong allies.
Uh,
So I was, you know, the term preaching to the choir, I was preaching to the choir because they all knew it. They all knew all the stuff. There was bits and pieces here and there, obviously, that they maybe weren't as aware of. So the right people were in the room, but the wrong people were in the room because I would have loved to have some straight people
yeah.
in the
Oh, for
room,
sure.
cisgender
Yeah.
straight people, to learn on why pronouns are important and why they matter and a little bit of the Canadian queer history, because in my talk I share a couple of movie previews of like on YouTube, a couple of movies that people can watch to learn more.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, so it was like it was well attended, and though I wish other people were in the room too.
No, that makes sense because obviously the people that were in the room, they kind of already know, and they're probably a lot more aware than those who should have probably been in the room.
Yeah,
But,
totally.
well, one of the things is I know that we did the last time, and I'm still doing it, is asking my fun rapid fire questions. And this time around, I'm having a little bit more fun because I decided to ask these questions with a Canadian twist.
Yay!
So, and it's really funny because I had a chat with someone earlier who actually grew up in Toronto, and I'm going to have fun with their questions and throw it like a Toronto twist. So I apologize, listeners, if it doesn't make sense to you, but I have a feeling it's still going to be good
Oh yeah,
and you're going to still enjoy it. And I have to say, I have a lot of Canadians that listen.
nice.
So I have the numbers prove it. So I am fine to share this. And who knows, there might be others in other different provinces that don't know this.
Yeah,
So,
and maybe we'll see
so,
what happens, but the questions are. So yeah.
all right. So what's your go-to, I need to reset my nervous system move? A walk by the bow, a Timmy's run, a couch nap, or a full dramatic drive with the music way up?
Definitely, there's a couple answers in there. For sure, going to walk by the Bow River or the Elbow
Okay.
River because Calgary has two.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Also, though, I'm very grateful that Calgary is about an hour and a half, maybe an hour from the mountains. So I can drive to the Rocky Mountains. They're on my doorstep, and that's where I find peace.
Awesome. All right. If self-acceptance had a theme song, what's the vibe? A big Stampede main stage energy, indie Cabin in the Rockies healing, or a main character leaving downtown Calgary
Oh,
soundtrack?
Stampede, for sure, Stampede. The
I
Calgary
love it.
Stampede is the greatest outdoor show on earth, and that they've actually coined that phrase. And
Awesome.
yeah, come and see it. Everyone has to experience the Calgary Stampede, the rodeo, the chuck wagons, the nighttime grandstand show once in their life, and that the theme song would be all over that grandstand show with the young Canadians.
I love that. All right. Alberta camping or hiking essential. What's the one thing you refuse to head into the mountains without?
Bear spray.
Okay. I was not expecting that. I like that.
Bear spray.
Okay.
You need to be safe.
Oh, yeah.
Last year, the bears were lower down the mountains because the berries
Ooh.
weren't as fruitful up in the higher elevations. So they came down, and you had to have your bear spray with you, even in the campgrounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, thank you. All right. What's one phrase? We're a couple months into 2026. What's one phrase you're officially leaving behind in 2026?
In 2020, I'm leaving behind in
So
2026 or leaving
yeah,
behind?
you're gonna leave behind in this year. You're gonna get rid of that phrase.
That's a good question. Not really sure how to answer that because I'm very thoughtful with my word choices and what I say and how I say things. Yeah, not sure on the answer.
All right. All right. So last fun question. What's your most chaotic? I looked confident, but internally I was one Chinook gust away from spiraling moment at work.
Or Chinook. Actually, we figured it out on the fly this morning, actually. I knew I had an employer coming into the office, and our office is on the small side. So we don't have much in the way of meeting space. For some reason, yesterday when I messaged this person on LinkedIn saying, I'll see you at 10 a.m., I get in this morning and I look at my calendar and it's like, oh, it's actually 9 a.m. that this person's coming, and we didn't have a space for us to meet. So
Oh no.
I'm like at my supervisor's door. I'm like, I don't know where we're going to meet. She's like, well, so we kind of finagled around. Okay, you're going to go to training in this room. You're having a meeting with this person in that room. Amy, just use your office because my office is myself and 4 others. So it's like, yeah, okay, that'll work. That was this morning.
Nice. I like that. All right. So, Amy, if someone listening is stuck
Mm-hmm.
between I want to be out and I don't feel safe yet,
Mm-hmm.
what's one actionable step that they can take this week to move forward towards self acceptance without forcing themselves into danger?
Yeah. Take a look around. Maybe there's somebody in your circle of trust, we'll call it, that you can tell that about your gender identity or your sexual orientation. Maybe on the inside, like maybe you're go out and buy a fun pair. It sounds really weird, but go out and buy a fun pair of like rainbow underwears and like wear that.
Nice.
So it's just for you and you're wearing it,
There.
yet
Yeah.
no one else knows.
That's funny. I would never have thought about that,
Yeah, that just
but
kind of
that's
flew into my
actually
head. I was like, "Where'd that come from?" But I'm gonna say it.
I like that though. That's really because you're right. It's just for them. They can
Yeah,
see that. They can, they're not, no one else is going to see that. So I like that. That's good.
yeah.
Well, Amy, I want to thank you again for coming on. This has been fun. Honestly, I was very happy when you reached out because I was like, yay, I had so much fun the first time. We definitely have to chat again.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you again, obviously, for bringing your honesty, your heart to this conversation
Mhm.
because it was so much fun the first time and I'm so glad we got to do it again.
Yeah, it's fun, and thank you for saying yes to inviting me back. Yeah, it's always fun being on people's podcasts and sharing story and connecting and sharing some wisdom. So it was fun. Thank you.
And for listeners, here's what I'm taking. Inclusion isn't a vibe, it's a practice. And self-acceptance isn't something you wait for. It's something that you build choice by choice, boundary by boundary. So if this episode reminded you that you're not behind, you're becoming, share it with someone who needs that reminder too. And if you're ready for support, navigating identity, confidence, workplace belonging, or career direction without abandoning yourself in the process, connect with me at Empowered and Out Coaching. You can book a discovery call through the show notes, or you can DM me the word ready. So until next time, breathe deep, stay rooted, and keep choosing the version of you that feels free.
Thanks, everyone.